I'm here in London with Tim Mondavi, and you're here to present Continuum.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the sentiment behind the
Well,
wine?
sure. I think the sentiment is that my family has a long, proud history in California, starting with my grandfather Cesare. He started us in 1919. He discovered many great things of California and wine and the regions. He discovered Napa Valley for us. He said, Bobby, for great wine, go to Napa Valley. So my father did. And then my father took us to the stars, um, most notably at Robert Mondavi Winery in 1966. I was delighted to be able to put the first valves on the first tanks as a young 15-year-old boy, and then worked there every summer until I started working there full-time in '74. And my father very quickly put me in charge of all the vineyards and the wines. Too early, I think, but I loved it. And we had the role of discovering what makes great wine tick. And so we had a very developed experimental program that helped us ask those questions, and then we got to be able to determine those answers and evolve over time. So because we would also be committed to producing one of the best wines of the world, we would travel throughout the world, seeing what was out there. And that, of course, stimulated our ideas, developed friendships. Our wines kept getting better and better, and some of these friendships and the recognition drew the attention of this interesting fellow from Bordeaux. He approached my father in '68 and said, maybe, Bob, we can do something together. Well, it was premature. But '78, Baron Philippe again came to my father, and Opus One was born in '79. So I was very fortunate to have known three generations of Rothschilds, Baron Philippe de Rothschild and Philippine de Rothschild and Philippe and Julien, three winemakers that have been responsible for the wines of Mouton Rothschild, Lucien Ciano, Patrick Léon, and Philippe Dalloin. And that had a big impact on what we were doing. We carried on and were able to then, years later, develop a relationship with the Frescobaldi family in Italy. And we had Luce della Vite from Montalcino. That led to our ability to acquire from Lodovico Antinori. I tried to talk him out of selling the property, but he ended up saying, Dim, I know two things about myself. One, I love to create things. I'm good at that. I can do that. It's very fun for me. But second, I hate to manage it. I hate it. It's driving me nuts. You guys are good at that. You take it. I'll go do something else. So he has. He has Bizerno now in Bulgari, and we owned Ornellaia. And it was a dream come true for me. Small, focused, fabulous. And I learned a lot there, as I've learned with all of the relationships. We've also had another relationship with Eduardo Chadwick in Chile. And Eduardo was a very dignified fellow, and so it was fun to be able to work with him to develop Senya and Calitera and Arboleda, lots of different things. But ultimately, all of these relationships have given me a sense of the importance of site. And in Napa Valley, being the wine grower for my father there at Robert Mondavi for 30 years, and Pinot Noir particularly, is that lens to the site. And it is that sensitivity that it possesses that demands, it's very demanding, and of the right site, and low yields and proper exposure, as well as a gentle hand in the cellar. So anyway, all of those things were fabulous. We're going along. We went public in '93. Our public board understood the balance sheet way better than I did, but they had no clue as to what they were balancing the company upon. They had no clue as to what wine was like. And I was very much against the overuse of my father's good name, but they knew better, so it happened. And so long story short, the company was taken over at the end of 2004. But I was committed. My sister and I were committed to carrying on with the best of what my family stood for. And so Continuum was born. Continuum with what has the concept of pursuing one wine from a great site. Now, originally, we were heartbroken at the sale of Robert Mondavi, and it was not something we wanted or intended to have happen, but it did. We were grasping on to the past, wanted to hold on to the best of the past, and we were able to, for the first 3 vintages, have Continuum be realized in Tokelon, 100% Tokelon with the '06 vintage. Well, okay, but as some of the heartache lessened, and the bag of money that I had allowed me to go anywhere in the world I wanted, I said, I want to be in Napa Valley, but where's the best place, the single best place? And I looked and I looked and I looked, and I knew the valley rather well, having grown up there, having worked with the wines at Robert Mondavi for 30 years full time. But ultimately, I fell in love with some properties. Oof! Had my heart broken, wasn't the right place. Nope, not going to go there. But I found now our Continuum estate, and I fell in love, and I went very hard and so I was able to secure these 2 properties back to back. Neither of them were on the market, but now we have 173 acres of land. 62 are dedicated to vines. I have tweaked the proportion such that it is planted 55% to Cabernet Sauvignon, 25% to Cabernet Franc. I love Cabernet Franc. Cabernet is king in the valley, but I love Cabernet Franc. It's silk and violets and beautiful fragrance, and it only gets better with time. And then 15% Petit Verdot. When Elia showed me that Cabernet Franc and Petit Verdot did very well there, I increased the percentage in the vineyards.
Well, what do you like about Petit Verdot? Why is it special?
In California, in the right area, on older vines, it appears usually quite as an ugly duckling when it's young, so initially I didn't care for it. But as it ages, it develops a gracefulness, it develops an elegance, and there is an earthy quality in the fragrance as well as in the palate. It can be very muscular in a very good way, and when it's young, its muscularity is clumsy and offensive, and I didn't like it. I swore it off. I said, no, we want wines of elegance, not that. But it's that ugly duckling that turns into the beautiful swan. It is gorgeous as it ages. So I think it adds a little muscle to envelop the skeleton of the backbone. It gives depth of color, and again, it gives a savory note or an earthiness in fragrance as well as in palate. So I like that very much. And then the last variety we have is Merlot, just 5% Merlot in the vineyard, and that makes all of the other stronger personalities kind of coalesce into something beautiful.